For more than 1,400 years, the Quran has been a source of profound spiritual guidance for billions. But what if, tucked within its verses, there's another layer entirely? A mathematical one. A fascinating field of study is exploring exactly that, the idea of an intricate numerical code woven right into the fabric of the text. Today, we're going to try and decode some of these alleged miracles.
It really all comes down to one massive question. One that sits right at the intersection of faith and, believe it or not, pure mathematics.
So to really get a feel for what researchers are talking about, let's just jump right in with a pretty startling example. Now, at first glance, the two columns you're about to see, well, they seem to have absolutely nothing in common.
On the left, you've got 3 specific chapters, or surahs, from the Quran. And on the right, the famous 3-4-5 Pythagorean triplet, a cornerstone of geometry. Separately, they're just 2 unrelated lists of numbers. But just watch what happens when we add them up.
So you add up the Pythagorean triplet, 3 plus 4 plus 5, and you get 12. Simple enough, right?
Well, now add the Quran's chapter numbers, 2, 3, and 7. The sum is also exactly 12. Coincidence? Or could it be a hint of something much, much deeper?
Okay, so was that first example just a wild coincidence? Before we look at any more patterns, it really helps to understand the framework behind this research. This isn't just people randomly hunting for numbers. It's a pretty specific field of study.
The field is known as ijaz ilmi, which basically translates to the study of the Quran's scientific miraculousness. And it poses a really powerful question. Do these numerical patterns point to an intelligence that was far beyond what any human was capable of in the 7th century?
This whole search for meaning in numbers, it's not new. It's actually a really ancient human quest. From the symbolic use of the number 7 in ancient Babylon, all the way to the Greek philosopher Pythagoras teaching that everything is number, humanity has been looking for order in the universe through math for a long, long time. This tradition even had specific systems, like the Hebrew gematria and the Arabic abjad system, which both assign numerical values to letters. Now, a key focus for this research is a set of really mysterious letters called the muqatta'at. They're these disconnected letters that show up right at the start of just 29 chapters. While their exact meaning has been debated by scholars for centuries, for these numerical researchers, these 29 chapters are basically ground zero.
Okay, so let's get back to that number 12 pattern. Was it just a fluke? A one-off curiosity? Well, proponents of this theory say absolutely not, and they point to a structure that's way deeper.
Just think about the Quran's overall structure for a second. Out of its 114 total chapters, exactly 29 begin with those mystery letters. That leaves 85 that do not. And what's 29 plus 85? You got it, 114. Researchers see this division not as something random, but as a deliberate, built-in structural balance.
Now let's circle back to our very first pattern with chapters 2, 3, and 7. We added them together and we got 12. But what if we try a different operation? What happens if, instead of adding, we multiply them?
So 2 times 3 times 7 equals 42. And here's where it gets interesting. Chapter 42 of the Quran, Surah Ashura, is also one of those special 29 chapters that begins with the muqatta'at letters. Proponents argue this suggests a deliberate encoded link between these specific chapters. And the patterns can get even more complex. For instance, take the number 29, the total count of those special chapters. If you square its digits and add them together, so 2 squared plus 9 squared, you get 85. And that number, 85, is significant too. It's the chapter number of another surah. This creates a link between the total count of special chapters and the specific number of another one.
So, this brings us right to the core of the debate. We've seen some pretty compelling patterns, but how exactly should we interpret them?
Well, on one hand, supporters argue these patterns are just too complex and too interconnected to be an accident. They suggest this is a kind of divine signature, using a level of math that was just way beyond 7th century knowledge. On the other hand, skeptics bring up a crucial point about the human brain. There's a phenomenon called apophenia, which means our brains are basically pattern-finding machines. They're wired to see patterns, even in random data. They caution that in any large text, you can find numerical relationships if you look hard enough, and you risk cherry-picking the data to fit a theory you already have. So, let's step beyond the debate of design versus coincidence for a second. What's the ultimate purpose of all this research for the people who pursue it? Researchers in this field are really quick to point out that the goal isn't just a fascination with numbers for their own sake. For them, it's an attempt to build a bridge between faith and reason, using objective, verifiable calculations to deepen their conviction.
The ultimate aim, they say, is to show how all of these patterns, from the simplest to the most complex, point toward the Quran's central message, Tawheed, or the absolute oneness of God.
And for proponents, we've really only scratched the surface. As one source puts it, the examples we've looked at today are just a small part of the Quran's pattern, a little hint of a much larger, more intricate design that's still waiting to be discovered.
And this whole exploration leaves us with a pretty provocative question. In our modern age, an age that's completely saturated with data and algorithms, what does a miracle even look like? Does it have to be something that defies the laws of nature, or could it be something found hiding in plain sight within the profound mathematical order of information itself?